Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we are strapping in for a journey into the world of complex simulation games.
And we're going deep on a brand new one.
We are. We're talking about the new global sensation in the city builder genre, Anno 117. We're here to analyze, well, the operational breakdown.
It's always about that drive for flawless infrastructure, isn't it? In this genre, you go from just placing a few farms to micromanaging these vast global supply chains.
And to really max out that efficiency, to get that beautiful, sustainable growth curve.
You have to master production ratios, and they often defy any kind of, intuitive logic.
Absolutely. The goal is perfect optimization. Zero bottlenecks, 100% throughput, just a perfectly oiled machine.
But the game hides its complexity, its math, behind this really simple-looking interface.
Exactly. So our mission in this deep dive is to analyze the community's immediate response after the game's November 13th release. We're pulling directly from the Anno subreddit, looking at the tools and debates to figure out what they built, why they felt they needed it, and, well, why this keeps happening.
Think of this as your shortcut. We're distilling the thousands, and I mean literally thousands, of collective hours the community put into spreadsheets in just the first week.
Okay, so let's start there. Let's unpack the mathematical obstacle course the game presents.
We have to. It all comes down to cycle times and, frankly, the cognitive load.
Right. Every building produces one thing in a set amount of time. You need your input, like a farm, to perfectly match the consumption rate of your output, your factory. The simple stuff like 1-to-1, 2-to-1.
That's easy. It's the clock that causes the trouble.
In previous Anno games, the cycle times were often, cleaner. Around a minute, maybe two. The math was more straightforward.
Precisely. But Anno 117 introduces this layer of deliberate friction. The community data shows that the widespread use of cycle times like 45 seconds and 1 minute 30 seconds is the core reason for this demand for external tools.
Okay, that immediately sounds like a headache.
It is.
45 seconds doesn't divide neatly into 60 or 120. If I'm doing that in my head, I'm trying to figure out how many 45-second chunks fit into a 3-minute period.
It's not quick math, not when you're also worried about fires and trade routes.
Right.
And one user on the subreddit summed it up perfectly. They said having to manage production chains with those 45-second times just, and I quote, freeze my brain.
I get that. The human mind just struggles to convert those fractions into clean ratios on the fly.
So let's use a simple comparison from the source material to really illustrate this for you. We can start with easy stuff.
The one-to-one relationship.
Yeah, let's take basic garments, tunics. If one tunic takes exactly 1 minute to produce, and it needs 1 unit of hemp, which also takes 1 minute to produce,
then you have a perfect one-to-one ratio. You build one of each, they run forever, no bottlenecks. Simple.
Simple enough, but now let's add that friction. Let's talk about rope. Rope takes 2 full minutes to make, but it uses that same hemp, which, remember, is produced every 1 minute.
Ah, so right away your hemp farm is sitting idle half the time.
Exactly. The hemp farm is making 1 unit every 60 seconds. But the rope maker only needs 1 unit every 120 seconds. You've got enough material for a second rope maker.
So you build 2 of them. Now your single hemp arm is making 1 unit per minute, and your 2 rope makers are each consuming half a unit per minute.
For a total of 1 unit consumed per minute.
A perfectly optimized, balanced flow.
That's it. That one farm supplying 2 factories, all running at max efficiency. That's the ultimate goal, just repeated hundreds of times over.
And the community's early infographics are all about mapping these non-intuitive connections.
Yeah, those charts that just exploded onto the subreddit. They break down these ratios for goods with 3, 4, even 5 different inputs.
And they found some real golden ratios, right?
They did. The sources confirm that for a perfect dairy operation, you can supply exactly 2 cheese farms with just 1 cattle farm. Or for textiles, 1 single sheep farm can supply 3 sail makers. These are the numbers people are frantically searching for in those first few days.
And even with these answers, some resources are still just frustrating. We saw one user venting about the timing for concrete.
Oh, yeah, said it drives me up the wall.
Which again just highlights that these awkward cycle times are the real enemy here.
They are, but we have to add a crucial caveat here. One, the community itself is very clear about. These elegant, optimized ratio guides.
The pretty charts.
Right, the perfect-looking charts. They're based purely on achieving 100% efficiency, maximum throughput. It's all about supply.
So you're maximizing the factory's output.
Correct. But they do not, and this is critical, they do not factor in your local population's demand.
That's a huge distinction.
It is. One user points out that if you just follow these graphs naively, you could end up, quote, significantly overproducing necklaces and burning workforce and resources. Your little town just doesn't need what your perfect factory is pumping out.
So it's a tool for, say, a dedicated factory island that just exports one thing.
Exactly, for island specialization. But it's not necessarily the tool for balancing the needs of your main city. The charts give you the production potential, not the consumption reality.
Which is an even more layered puzzle.
And that's where the community really steps in. If the in-game math is causing this much overload, they build their own solutions.
And the speed is what's astonishing. The game launched on November 13th. The complexity of the tools that appeared almost immediately is, well, it's incredible.
What were the main things that popped up?
Well, the primary artifact, the one that got immediate traction, was an infographic. It was called All Productions Optimized in One Image Per Region.
I saw that one. It was everywhere.
A username, the conceptor, put it together using data from Anno.land. It just became essential overnight because a complete visual guide was so hard to find.
That's the perfect quick reference. But a static image can't handle all the complexity, right? What about interactive tools?
We saw several. Users were sharing links to online calculators, like one at annocalculator.org. And an even more robust one, a demand and needs calculator, was at annomods.github.io.
Trying to solve that demand reality problem we just talked about?
Exactly. This level of rapid deployment, it shows real desperation, but also amazing talent. I mean, you read the quotes and the relief is just, it's palpable.
Like what?
Things like, incredible tool I needed 69 hours ago, or just calling the creator an absolute legend. It just shows how high the demand was for clear information to just play the game.
And that relief is warranted because these tools have to deal with even more than just the basic ratios. We have to talk about the layers of difficulty.
The buffs.
The bugs. The source material confirms that things like aqueducts, religion, research, they all modify the basic cycle times.
So if my tunic factory normally takes 1 minute, an aqueduct might drop that to, what, 50 seconds?
Exactly. And that 50-second production time completely breaks the perfect 1-to-1 ratio you had before.
Your output is faster, so suddenly you need more input than your 1-minute hemp farm can provide.
Which forces you to either accept a bottleneck or recalculate the entire chain all over again.
That sounds exhausting.
It is, and some of the early charts even admit this. They explicitly say they only provide the basic ratios with no buffs for simplicity. They leave the fine-tuning up to the player.
It really just highlights the spirit of the community, though. I love the comment that there needs to be a special Valhalla for people who do these things for the community.
These tools aren't just useful, they're game-enabling.
But all this appreciation leads us to the central frustration in the whole thread, doesn't it?
It does. We're on the 3rd or 4th major Anno title, and players are still relying on third-party data to manage core mechanics. It raises the big question. Why isn't this information in the game itself?
That is the core debate. But let me play devil's advocate for a second, because we do see this viewpoint in the sources.
Go for it.
Isn't part of the fun of a complex sim game solving the puzzle? If the developers just hand you a perfect ratio sheet, aren't they taking away a core challenge?
That's a fair point. For a certain type of player, the puzzle solver, discovering that 1-to-2 ratio is the reward.
But for most people.
For the majority, the argument is about accessibility and user experience. The sources confirm what you can see in-game. You get the cycle time when you hover over a building.
And some people argue that's enough, that the math should be easy to do in the head.
But, as we've established, with 45-second timers and layered buffs, it's clearly not. It creates an unnecessary barrier.
So what do they want instead?
They want a formalized glossary or a reference card tied to an F key or a full in-game calculator, something to stop them from having to alt-tab to a browser just to place a new factory.
And this feeds right into the more cynical take on developer motivation. We should be clear, this is a community opinion, we're just reporting it. One user suggested that developers might think, and I'm quoting here, why would they waste money on developing such things when the community will do it for free anyway? Just typical corpo thinking.
And that viewpoint suggests that the developers are basically relying on the passion of their fans to finish the user interface. It's this tension between simulation fidelity and, quality of life.
And because that tension exists, Players find other ways to cope.
Exactly. They develop alternative strategies, the good enough approach versus the perfect one.
So what did that look like?
Well, some players just ignore the optimization charts completely. They only look at the in-game statistics window and use what you could call a buffer strategy.
Just making sure the production bar is longer than the consumption bar.
Always. Keep it in the green. It's not perfect, but it stops the empire from collapsing.
Sounds a lot less stressful, I have to say.
It is. And then you see late game strategies where players have huge cash reserves. One person mentioned they just start buying and importing almost everything.
Skipping the production chains entirely.
Almost. They use retailers and high taxes to regulate the economy. They substitute global trade for internal logistics, which makes the whole ratio math problem, well, moot.
That's a fascinating workaround, using one game system to bypass another.
It is, but even for players who do try to use the in-game tools, there are UI frustrations. One big one cited is that the statistics screen shows inactive buildings factories that are paused as if they just don't exist.
So you can't see the full picture of your potential production.
Right. It's seen as a big downgrade from Anno 1800, and it makes finding your bottlenecks so much harder. You're being fought by the interface.
So if we pull this all together, this whole scramble for resources in Anno 117 really just demonstrates the huge cognitive load required to manage these nonlinear production ratios.
Efficiency in this genre, it isn't just an in-game skill anymore. It's an external collaborative achievement that lives in these community-made tools.
And this deep dive gave you, the listener, a shortcut to all that knowledge the community spent countless hours figuring out. You now understand the complexity. You know where to find the tools, and you know why a 45-second timer is the stuff of nightmares for perfectionists.
But while the production ratios, the supply side, are pretty much solved now,
There's an unsolved piece.
there is. We have to
Right.
circle back to it. One user pointed out that the true time-intensive challenge that the community still needs to nail down is calculating the precise consumption rates.
The demand side. Why is that so much harder?
Because production is static math. Consumption is dynamic. It's tied to population tiers, happiness bonuses, specific lifestyle needs. It's always changing.
So you can't just solve it on a spreadsheet.
Not easily. As one player noted, calculating the true, perfect demand for a good requires you to treat the game like a science experiment.
What do you mean?
They have to manually add houses, one by one, and watch the supply graph. They add a house, watch. Add another house, watch again. Until they see the exact moment the supply starts to decline.
The moment demand finally outstrips production.
Precisely. That laborious house-by-house testing process is the next mountain the community has to climb. The factory math is done, but scaling the population perfectly, that still requires dedicated sacrifice.